What's going on, y'all? It's Huggie Pacino, aka Chief Ipley, back with another video. So, unpopular opinion here. Spoiler alert for those who have never seen this movie. You have been informed that this is a spoiler alert. This is the review of the movie Straw by Tyler Perry. For those who do not want to watch this, if you've never seen the movie, you do not want it to be spoiled for you, do not watch this video. So it takes place that she wakes up in a hospital, apparently with the baby, a child. Eventually she comes home, and you see her wake up in a hot home. It has fan in the window, no AC, typical inner city living conditions. She comes out, she gets her kid ready for school, to take her to school to get ready to go to work. Eventually she sees this homeless guy named Benny, who's played by comedian Sinbad, and I will say that it's great to see him again because he's recovered from a massive stroke. So it's just good to just see him. Props to Tyler Perry for playing him in a movie, and hopefully we get to see Sinbad again and again and again. It's a blessing to just see him be doing anything for that matter. So the landlord also fusses at her from the balcony, saying, hey, you know, you paying him money, what about my rent? You know what I'm saying? So she says she'll be back before 10 o'clock, around time she goes on break. She'll be back to pay the rent when she goes on break from work. So eventually she leaves. She gets ready to take the kids to school, drops off at school. All right? It's the first of the month, so she comes to work. She works at a grocery store. This particular store got a line all the way to the back with a whole bunch of black people, mainly black women, trying to get their groceries. It's the first of the month, so you know how that goes. She goes in the back. Of course, we observe that she has an angry supervisor, black male. All right, he's very upset, very angry. You can tell he's one of those types. Okay, mean supervisor. First customer approaches her and tells her that she tells the lady that she can't purchase these particular items with the SNAP benefits at a certain, and she said that certain people have done it for her. Why you can't do it? She said, I don't know, but we can't do that. Well, the lady gets upset, leaves, and the male that's with her grabs the bottle, breaks the bottle near her feet. Now, one time did the supervisor say anything about this? He says, hey, you know, get this up, clean this up. You know, we can't have no slip and fall. You know, people trying to get paid. Doing slip and fall. So that's all he was concerned about, because it shows you the character of who he is. All right. So next thing you know, she gets a call from the school. She goes in the back by the break room, gets a call to school about her daughter. She has to leave work. Okay. Now you don't hear this phone call until later, but we'll talk about that another time. The supervisor, angry, tells her that she can't leave, and she said, you're always making excuses. Eventually he lets her leave. Say, hey, as long as you be back here in 30 minutes. So but if she wants her check before she leaves so she can go cash it, she can give her money to get some money to her daughter, okay, for lunch. And the supervisor says, no, you're not getting your check. Like, no, you don't come back here or whatever. So boom, she goes and tries to go to the bank. So she makes an attempt to go get some money at the account, but she doesn't have enough money to withdraw, or she wants to speak to the manager to see if there's a possibility, if she can get some money, because she banks there regularly. Okay, that doesn't work out for her, so she eventually has to leave because she can't sit in a line too long. So eventually she makes the attempt to go and to the school. Now I find it strange that this is 2025. I don't know why we're not doing direct deposit. At least if you don't have direct deposit, the company themselves have bank cards where they do direct deposit for bank cards, and it keeps them from doing all this paper check writing, which, you know, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's 2025. I thought mostly companies would adapt to this, especially being that, you know, you deal with a bank. Why don't you have direct deposit already? You know, but I digress. But anywho, so eventually what happens is she goes to the school. CPS is already there to take her child away. Apparently they said that, you know, the CPS lady said, you know, we'll be in touch with you, we'll help you out, we need to come make a visit to your home, etc. So she was like, damn, y'all taking my baby away from me, and she was upset. So now it seems like everything is crumbling. She's got to pay her rent, she can't pay her rent, she can't get her check, she can't stay at work, and now you got this going on. So leaving the school, it's pouring raining. Okay, so now What worse can happen? Rain. It shows up. So now she gets into this accident with this off-duty officer. Okay, white male. Okay, he hits her car, he chases her down, and says, he's gonna get her. And eventually, an officer gets involved, a female officer. She gets into the female officer to let her know that this guy hit me. And he tries to beg and plead that no, that didn't happen that way. And she didn't know he was an officer. She found that at the time of the accident when the female officer was trying to figure out what happened. So eventually, this officer threatens her, say, hey, when I see you out here, I'm going to find a way to legally unalive you, which is weird. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, who says that? I'm going to find a way legally to do, like, who does that? Like in front of the other officer, which was kind of weird. But I digress on that as well. So eventually what happened is the female checks her license and registration and etc. and none of it comes back good. So she has to, tow a car. Now, eventually, she has to head back to work. Heading back to work, it's 2 hours later. The supervisor said he called someone else in so that she could, now he called someone else in, but you could have made that call when she wanted to leave. But you could make that call just so you could fire her for being 2 hours late. So eventually she gets terminated. So now she's saying, well, can I have my check? He said, well, the company policy, we mailed the last check. You don't have to get this check. Now, here's the problem. She has more hours to be paid for. So this check that you're holding for that day won't be the final check. I don't even know why this is even a thing. Like, sometimes the script that Tyler Perry and many writers for that matter, they go overboard to make things a little bit too ridiculous. You understand? Like, there's no possible way that this woman has a final check if she's at work that day. Even if it's just that one day, that 1 hour, that 30 minutes. Well, that will be the final check that day, if it's that day as a new pay period. I don't even know why I got to explain that to some people, but I digress on that as well. Anyway, so then here goes the thing that you have, it's a rainy day, so now she goes home. She's evicted. All her things are outside, and she never came back by 10 on her break as promised to pay. I don't think that's illegal unless you have a court order. So what kind of lease do you have? And you're already under the eviction process? Anyway, she goes back to work, all right, to beg for a job. And he says no. Some random guy said hello to Janiyah, which was on her name tag, which is how he knew her name. He asked about the sell Black and Miles. The supervisor told him you're not supposed to be back here in the office. He pulls a gun and robs the man. While Janiyah is there, he's gathering the money to give, right? Somehow the money on the desk, he's telling Janiyah to pick it up. Janiyah refuses to give him the money, and they tussle over it with the gun. The gun goes off by mistake when Janiyah has it in her hand. She unalives the robber. The second robber runs away. The supervisor now has assumed that she set up the robbery because he knew her by name, okay? Not realizing that her name tag is on her shirt, okay? What a hell of a script we got here. He calls 911. He tells them the place was being robbed, and his now former employee set up the robbery and unalived someone. She gets nervous, and eventually she, unalived the supervisor. Picks up the check with blood on it, okay? Didn't get all the money, but just grabs the check with the money on it, with the check with the blood on it, okay? Well, she tries to go to the bank and cash it. But then she has no identification, but she complains that, hey, y'all know me, y'all see me, y'all come here all the time or whatnot, all right? So the lady is like feeling like since the gun comes out and she's telling her to cash the check, the lady just handed her money. She said, why'd you give me all this money? Like, and that's when I realized, okay, the Naya girl's a little bit slow. Like, something ain't right here. I don't think the elevator goes all the way to the top. It might go halfway, but I don't think it go all the way to the top. But her, so then what happens is she now tells the bank teller, cash it. So now it looks like a robbery to everyone that's involved here. At this point, Janiyah you know, has a situation where, you know, somehow these she holds up the line with these customers. There's a line full of customers, and then eventually a lady by the name of Nicole that works in the back is getting this phone call about a possibility of her getting robbed, of them getting robbed. Okay. Now there's a black man that's angry because he wants his money. So eventually in this particular scene, he's running to try to take the woman down because she has a gun. Eventually he gets into a tussle with her. The gun goes off toward the ceiling. He and the security officer that's there runs out the bank. And eventually they say, hey, you know, they tell him to come on or whatever. And he tells them, hey, you know, the other lady's still robbing the bank. She's in there. It's just me and the security officer. He says, though, the security officer ain't doing anything. Now, what's strange is that the security officer obviously isn't armed. I don't think unarmed officers are allowed to oversee banks, at least to my knowledge. So I don't understand why there's an unarmed officer at a bank anyway. So somehow this TV inside the bank turns on and they show the so-called robbery that's in progress. The female detective seems to be sensitive by the name of Detective Raymond, played by Tiana Taylor, okay? She argues to be the negotiator instead of their own negotiator would have been someone else. She said that, hey, she can connect to me and, you know, I'm pretty much of a female voice. And we understand that she robbed a man, set up a man, and unalived a man. So basically, the female detective, black, ironically wants to connect to her, which is a pretty good idea. Somehow, we are being sympathetic with the female that unalived two people. Now, let that sink in. I want y'all to think about other movies and real life situations, okay? In real life situations, this type of stuff doesn't happen. Nobody sympathizes with a male that unalived two people and now in the bank with a suspected alleged bank robbery. This would never happen. But let's continue. So now she speaks with her and Janiyah, okay? Janiyah asks, why are the police out there like that? As if she did not just see on the TV why they're out there. You know what I'm saying? So I said, okay, yeah, the Janiyah elevator is not going nowhere now. I think that elevator might not go halfway. It might not go past the first floor. But y'all still don't believe this girl? For those who watch this movie, the character Janiyah is obviously mentally disturbed. With that being said, you'll find out later why. They said this on the TV that she watched. Detectives told her she could help her if she comes out without the gun. She said, you can't help me. No one helps me. She does it all by herself. And I know that sounds all too familiar when it comes down to single mothers, but even at a time like this, you will be saying this, which is weird. So now the premise of the movie isn't mental health and that the girl has a mental problem. It's just she's just a stressed out single mother and we must sympathize with her. Now, one of the tellers have a cell phone and start recording to go on a live feed as they can see inside the bank of what's going on. So then they make a second attempt to speak to the Janiyah, where now we see one of the male officers that she had an encounter with. He's one of the people outside in the standoff, okay, saying that he would unalive her if he sees her again, and now she's using that as a defense tactic as to how she wants to get out of the situation. Okay? So somehow in this movie, this is a justification for her lack of accountability, which is the main problem of this whole movie. No accountability whatsoever, no matter how you look at this. Although it isn't right for what the male officer did, now the world sees Janiyah through a personal and emotional lens. She works 2 jobs and now she wants to explain what happened to her daughter. She fell in a tub because she's sick and lost her balance. She wants to bathe herself, so she allowed her kid to make the irresponsible decision to become hurt. They blamed her for the bruises on her back. Well, I'm not sure the daughter would have said that, but apparently she didn't because CPS took her anyway. But they didn't care, but neither did she. Now the detective is just as sympathetic as everyone watching. The detective is also a single mom, a veteran no father for a kid, and they seem to have that in common. So we have two women with poor choices of men. Detective's mother was so angry with her growing up, but she still loved her mom. Same thing, she didn't have a father. So it seemed like both of these women didn't have a father and no father for their kids. It seemed like they're just keeping the curse going, regardless of her own mother doing the same thing. Small note here, Janiyah claims to have no relatives, no family, or nothing, and her daughter is 8 years old. So she's afraid of that officer outside, and she stresses that to the detective. So there's this interaction between the bank manager and Janiyah. She asks about this, because she had this jacket on because she was cold inside the bank. The manager said her husband gave it to her. Janiyah asked, is he good? The manager said he's the best. She said, well, good. Got to be careful who you have a baby by. The manager said, seems you had a lot to get over today. And Janiyah replies, black women always have something to get over. Seems pretty familiar, isn't it? Janiyah looks at the pictures of the manager and her family and said, big nice house in the suburbs. And her apartment ain't no bigger than the room she's sitting in at the bank. So in this discussion, Janiyah is envious of Nicole. She compares how Nicole has what she doesn't have, wants what she has. But the key thing here is that Nicole said she had a husband and talked about how great he is. So she did it correctly. She picked the right man. And now we can also play semantics, because I know what y'all going to say. There's going to be some women that say, everybody doesn't want to get married. Everybody doesn't have to have a husband. And some people just don't do it that way. And it just doesn't always happen that way. But that's what you're supposed to aim for. Husband, marriage before having a kid. But I digress. If you want to feel otherwise, that's on you. Anywho, but the woman, Janiyah, all she ever mentions is just living better. She doesn't talk about her husband. She smiles when Nicole compliments her on how attentive she is when she brings her kid to the bank. But Nicole mentions how if she didn't have her husband, she wouldn't know what to do. Janiyah's response to that is saying, well, you would have figured it out. While Janiyah is envious of her, Nicole is extremely thoughtful and hopeful for Janiyah. Pay attention to the difference between the two completely different black women in this dialogue. Nicole is like the diamond in the dirt. Think about it. So Nicole brings the accountability to Janiyah and about her promise to spend time in jail, and one day she could see her daughter again. Janiyah didn't like that. Didn't bring any happiness to her face. She even got mad. So even in the idea of wanting validation and gratitude and no accountability, didn't that seem pretty familiar? Nicole asked about her family. Janiyah said no, she can't deal with her family. Her family is crazy. And specifically, she stated her mother and sister are crazy. She didn't mention a father, didn't mention a baby father. No brothers, no males were mentioned at all. There also ended up being a group of protesters arriving saying free Janiyah. They came in support of the woman that's inside the bank. Notice when they got a black woman to speak with the news, the lady started cursing. We are tired of this effing S, and we go through too much. So they took the mic away from her, and of course, angry black woman that can't be classy enough to when it's time to speak. So they asked the black man. Ironically, it's Benny, Sinbad from the movie, and it's none of the other than what Benny had to say, because this is the guy that's the disabled guy from earlier that she gave the money to outside the apartment. So now he's able to say that she supported him and gave him food when he didn't have nothing to eat, and that she's a good girl and she don't do anything, and I'm here to support you and I'm here for you, right? So he didn't do any profanity. So they go, and the black woman that just used profanity on TV snatches the mic and says the same thing, curses again, and then says what did them MFers do? This S, and I get this, we get this shit. I'm trying not to curse. Fuck, I just almost just said. She said, what them motherfuckers do? This shit, I get it. I get all this shit'll make you snap. That's what she said. So it's okay if she unalive because of her life choices. Even the older black woman told Janiyah she don't know how good she got it. Okay, this was the older woman that was in the bank, and she had diabetes. Okay, so she was letting it be known, like, yo, y'all got it good. Like, you know, we went through a lot more than this. You know. So basically, she said if you want to, he said what she wants her to do is to surrender, because that would mean that she's really grateful of her life. The hospital is at fault for her mental issues because she has them. Okay. She claimed that they wanted her to abort her baby during labor, then stated that she had no insurance. So apparently the state didn't have no help for her, nothing at all. And I'm like, so we have Nicole here that, you know, she wants Nicole to get her child. If something happened to her, if she goes to jail. A total stranger seems to be a better choice for a kid than anybody else in her family, or even the baby father for that matter, who in turn in the video, in the movie, they never questioned. So now that the police have had 12 hours to figure this whole thing out, the FBI starts to take over. She told the FBI that she wants to speak to Detective Raymond. So she basically thinks that she could tell the FBI what she wants. Okay? So now she wants to talk to Detective Raymond and not them. You have to also realize that if this is supposed to be a story, that in reality, the FBI, when they take over, it's a wrap. It's a federal problem, and the regular PD got to get out of here, and you can't tell them what to do. And now it becomes a real serious situation where they start making choices. So with that being said, as long as y'all understand that in the movie and not try to make it seem like it's some type of racist thing because they bring in a white FBI officer, which I wish I had a black FBI officer that did that. Y'all would have looked at it totally different. Or they probably would have either did it that way and make you look at it differently, or you probably would have said, oh, it's another angry black man. So what happens in this movie is they have you looking at either the white man as a racist white man and the black man as an angry black man. And the only black man that you see that actually that you could perceive to be a likable character is Benny, Sinbad. But I digress. So either way, and go back to my notes here. So that's the only reason that they haven't came in yet, because they realized that once they now discovered that the alleged bomb is now a science project for her daughter, okay, that's in the backpack, okay? Now here's the issue. You just gotta wonder to yourself, how did this science project still be in her backpack? And why is this backpack at home, okay? So now it's starting to make you wonder, like, wait a minute, why is the science project not at school? Okay, so anywho, that's the only reason that they haven't came in yet, because when there's a bomb involved, they're not trying to rush the place. Okay, but she wants the main officer she wants the main officer removed that threatened her earlier in the movie. Finally, they're speaking to the female officer that towed the car. All right, this is the PD. She did nothing wrong, but she did let it be known that the male officer claimed that he hit her. She admits that she didn't see the accident, but did say that Janiyah had damage to her car. That's when they discovered that Officer Oliver, who was the guy in question, when Detective Raymond went to approach him, she just punches him, which I thought was weird. Like, why don't you just ask him what's going on? Why would you assault him as an officer? Which I think they try to make her out to be this tough black woman. So now it's just all about the tough black woman acting tough to the white guy now, which we know goddamn well that would never happen. But I digress. Anyway, now apparently the officer that is the cause of all, now they're saying that the officer is the cause of everything that happened, when it's not necessarily the case. It's not all his fault. He plays a major role only in the day that was very stressful and messed up. He is not the cause of the unaliving of the two people, the robber and the manager, okay, or the eviction. Why? I mentioned that earlier, so we're not going to go over that. But he's only responsible for adding more problems to her life, which caused her damage to her car, and for her to even be questioned about the, well, lack of accountability for having registration for a vehicle. But that's another story, okay? So Detective Raymond, let me say, make sure you get back to my notes correctly here. So Detective Raymond gets in the way of the FBI and just goes to speak to Janiyah about the officer, okay? So she decides to call anyway. The FBI makes the call also that they're going in. And this is how the law works. Eventually, when they jump in the way, they make their call about how they're going to get in, whether they go through the roof or whatever the case may be. And they know that. So the BPD is trying to avoid that. So Detective Raymond makes it her business to just go to the bank entrance regardless. They identified the officer, Officer Oliver. That's the one that did what happened, that made the threats to Janiyah earlier in the movie. Okay? So once we got an identification of that, we understand that this officer is the cause of what happened between the day. Hostages are being released now. And Nicole is the only one that refuses to leave out with Janiyah, okay? So Janiyah and Nicole is going to go out by them, together. Janiyah said that she never had anyone stand by her, and she apologized for everything. But here's the spin, okay? Here's the interesting ending, okay? She was hallucinating about her daughter the entire day. The presence of her daughter never existed. She never got her ready for school. She never put her in the car, never took her to school, never received a call from the school. She'd been talking about this $40 to give her daughter, but the entire time Nicole knew that she was hallucinating, and it wasn't true. She had this vision. Okay, so Janiyah has this vision where FBI comes in and takes her out and unalives her instead of arresting her, okay? Now that too didn't happen because you realize she had a vision, she was daydreaming, comes out of it and snaps out of it when Nicole says, hey, and then she wakes up. But it's still next to Nicole and is about to surrender, and she peacefully goes into custody, and that is the end of the movie, okay? Now, in conclusion of this, as I've watched many reviews and things said about this movie, 3 important factors are ignored. Responsibility of life choices and the children that you have, accountability of those choices, and lack of mental health of women around the world. And I want to say this, I say this with all love. I don't say this with no hate. This is not an insult. This is not a celebratory movie, okay? You should celebrate this movie. This is a wake-up call for mainly black women around the world, okay? Get help. Get mental help, okay? Now, I want you to also say this and understand one thing. After all, Tyler Perry did leave you with an emotional ending and a message toward the end. But he also still played a role in clowning black women always in most of these movies. As usual, you don't even realize it. It's kind of like a way of clowning you and leaving a hidden message, okay? And without question, the main thing, more propaganda to hate men, mainly black men, but men in general. Ironically, this movie comes released 1 week before Father's Day. Go figure. This is Huggie Pacino for the Huggie Pacino Effect. Like, share, subscribe. I'm gone.
Now that's Huggie Pacino certified.